Becca, a mom of 3 who just left her nursing job and is prepping to launch her new business, sent me this message. She's got her website done, she knows the one-on-one service she's going to be providing, and she even has the digital products ready. But it's growing her audience prior to launch that she's focusing on now. You're in luck, Beck, as is anybody who's prepping to launch something this year in the coming months, whether it is a product or a service. Click like if you've got at least one launch, one marketing campaign planned this year. I know I've got my 4 all lined up and ready to go. In this video, I'm going to talk to you about 5 different ways that you can grow your audience. And when I say audience, I mean your email list prior to your launch. I know you don't want to launch to crickets, no one does, so I'm going to talk to you about email list growing strategies that are working right now. If you're inside Prime to launch, you know that I'm going to totally recommend that you back up 6 to 8 weeks prior to the launch itself to craft the different messages and help make those dominoes fall along the way to you presenting your offer. That strategy has worked for so many of my Prime to launch students, and I love hearing about it. So this video is going to show you more ways that you can crank out that 3-part opt-in strategy that I teach inside PTL. Also, hey there, if we haven't met, my name is Ashlyn Carter. I have helped thousands of creators and creative entrepreneurs like you make more money with your words, because not knowing what to say prior to your launch should not be what's holding you back from making sales. I've got a couple of videos about launching coming up, so hit the subscribe button and the bell next to it so you can make sure that you're in the fam and you don't miss them when they go live. Strategy number 1, keeping it old school, kind of, the FB family, but I'm talking about organic ways to use these tools. Okay, I love paid traffic. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but in this specific strategy, I'm talking more about organic traffic. So people, and by people I mean entrepreneurs, love to complain that organic traffic just doesn't quite have the same reach, and I understand that. It definitely is a pay-to-play world. But sometimes the problem is us, not them. Sometimes we're using the same tired strategies or the things that worked last launch or 2 launches ago, and we've got to reiterate and change things. Basically, sometimes we need to call an audible on the old way of doing things and look at whatever neighborhood it is that the Facebook family, maybe it's Facebook itself, maybe it's Instagram, is pushing at the time. This was a light bulb moment for me last year at Social Media Marketing World. Subi Zimmerman took the stage and she called it, she coined the phrase, and it's so helpful, the neighborhoods of Instagram, so to speak. The basic feed, Instagram stories, lives, and IGTV. So when you're thinking about marketing your opt-ins on social media, and think about that app, and then I want you to break it down into the different neighborhoods that app may be trying to push, and I want you to try to figure out which one is the favorite child at the time of your launch or pre-launch. At the time of recording this video, it is 100% Reels on Instagram. Those weren't even out and available last year, and you can see, the minute you get on the app, you can see how Instagram is just pushing it. They love Reels right now. IGTV was big last year. I've got a video coming out in a couple of weeks where I'm going to specifically talk about crafting your pre-launch strategy for Instagram, so make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss that. But let's go back to Facebook, the Facebook platform, and use that as an example here. If I'm promoting my lead magnets and my opt-ins, I would absolutely be using lives right now. BestSumo reviewed 777 million Facebook posts, and they found that Facebook Live dominates the feed right now. When it comes to engagement, lives are where it's at. The highest averages for live videos are around that 3 to 4 minute mark. That's actually something they would even consider long form video. And many of the top posts are related to current events and what's going on in the news. I've talked about it in the past and in other videos, but this is why newsjacking can be so helpful when you're trying to figure out what to shape your content around. Go ahead and play off of what is going on in the world. At time of recording this, the Super Bowl is right around the corner, so how could you create content and play off that, or Valentine's Day, President's Day, whatever's going on, use that as a hook and a way to come up with some ideas. Newsjacking. So again, if I were moving into a launch right now, I would, at least for those 6 to 8 weeks back from my launch date, plan to go live at minimum once a week on the Facebook platform. Don't worry so much about the production value. I would instead focus on having 3 to 4 minutes of quality, high-end education, and then making sure that I'm mentioning whatever lead magnet it is that I'm promoting in that span of time. So to wrap up this strategy number 1, where I'm talking primarily about using organic marketing efforts via social media, that's your tip. Quit doing it like you did in 2018 or like you saw people do it in 2019, and instead go to that app, figure out what the favorite child is, and craft a strategy around that. Craft your hero content to fit into that that bucket. Then do it each week for that hero piece of content those 6 to 8 weeks leading up to your launch. Strategy number 2, Pinterest. I'm pulling out Pinterest from social media because it is more of a search engine itself, but we get a ton of website traffic to my website from Pinterest. So as you're growing your list prior to your launch, take every piece of hero content that you come out with and craft at least at a minimum 5 different pins, varying with different visual style that you can use to promote. Vanessa on my team is a total whiz and a boss at this stuff, and she takes those 5 pins and she schedules them out using a tool called Tailwind. Now, here is a hot tip here because you may have heard that before, but one thing I don't want you to forget about is if your content lends itself naturally to an infographic type of image, then absolutely create a pinnable infographic for every piece of your hero content. This is something that we've actually recently started doing, and the pins are doing great. This then functions as a 6th pin for that post and gives a little bit of a different way to consume the content that's in the post and bring people into the landing page, the blog itself. Don't be afraid to use this strategy, the 5 pins in the infographic, not just for your blog pieces, that hero piece of content, but also for the 3 lead magnets that you're creating for your launch itself. Again, I referenced those 3 inside Prime to Launch, but make sure that you're also pinning those opt-ins on Pinterest. The number 3 strategy, ads. And I love paid traffic, but it's also no secret this past year that we have seen big tech, social media splinter and possibly affect the paid traffic strategies that we have in our businesses. This is why you always want to be thinking on not building your business on other people's land or putting all your eggs in one basket. But all that said, I still think it is wise to have a paid traffic mechanism for your opt-ins. Now, when it comes to the ad copy itself, I have a copywriting training. I will link it right here where I talk about how to craft the different hooks and then the body copy that you can use for each of these 3 opt-ins. But the short answer, the big picture I want you to take away as I talk through this is to spend the bulk of your ad dollars up front before the launch even starts. So we're spending during that audience building time, those 6 to 8 weeks. That's where the lion's share of my money, and I tell my clients to put their money prior to any launch. The earlier I can get people in and then start to address the different objections that they may have to the offer I'm going to pitch them later, the more I can start to nurture that relationship. So I'm going to spend the bulk of everything up here in front of the launch. I also think it's safe to say be prepared to blow at least $1,000 for each opt-in that you're going to be pushing. I know that may seem like a lot. It's simply harder to break through the noise than it was in past years, kind of the same way that it's harder to rank on page 1 of Google. There's just more noise out there. There's more people competing. And it's absolutely still possible to break through on a lower ad spend budget, but it's just a little harder to get lucky on talent or killer content alone. Again, I know ad spend may not be possible, so that's why I'm trying to give a lot of organic strategies in this video as well. If you take nothing else away from this tip number 3, I do just want you to keep in mind the bulk of your ad spend, if you're doing ad spend at all prior to your launch, is going to be spent on the audience building time frame. I would also say don't be afraid to build your list with smaller offers, with tripwires, with tiny offers, putting out little pieces. I would way rather have an email list or an audience before a launch of not just leads, but actual customers, people that have raised their hand and said, I've already put a little bit of stake in this, even if it was $7, $17, whatever. That still just tells me that they're a little bit, I don't know, those are the people that I would rather try to push into a launch rather than just a lot of people who loved the free stuff. And don't get me wrong, I love free stuff too, but overall, with all the launches that we've done, I think that would be my vote. So yeah. Number 4, cold pitching to podcasts. I saw a meme one time that said that the millennial version of I'm going to write a book is I'm going to start a podcast. But the podcast industry is continuing to explode. And what's interesting is among weekly listeners, those who do listen to podcasts tend to listen to multiple podcasts. Here's my tip here. Do not be afraid to pitch yourself for podcasts. I have an entire video right here where I talk through how to craft the copy for a cold pitch that you're sending out to somebody that you don't know and you just want to be on their podcast. But here's what I don't talk about in that video. When it comes to growing your list from the podcast interview that you're on, lean on the host to guide you. They usually will tell you if they're comfortable with you mentioning something, i.e. they'll probably tell you at the end you can share a freebie. But here's what's worked better for me. It's always been better if while I'm talking, I can go ahead and drip and mention in some piece of content that I have or some freebie I have that would help reinforce something that I'm teaching on while I'm on a podcast interview. Here's an example, and I did a video on how to create one, but a quiz can be a great way to do this because it's not just some other PDF, but it's a diagnostic tool that can go ahead and help the people that you're educating while you're on the podcast interview continue to go down and figure out this and solve their problem. The number one thing I want you to keep in mind when you're on podcast interviews is how can you give so generously of what you know that it almost feels uncomfortable. I also want you to start your pitching calendar backed up from your launch. So remember, this pre-launch phase that we're talking about, growing our list, is that 6 to 8 week window, and podcasts will fill up in advance. So you need to back it up even further. And this may be too much right now for your next launch, but just put it on your radar for some upcoming launch or marketing campaign you have. Here's my best recommendation for this. I would make a list of 50 different outlets, blogs, or podcasts that you could pitch. And then every single Monday for 1 month, pitch 5 of them with that cold pitch template that I gave you earlier. You will hear no a lot, you will hear crickets a lot, but by pitching at least 20 different outlets, you are at least casting a wide enough net where you will get some yeses back, and you can be on those podcasts and mention whatever diagnostic tool, quiz, or freebie that you have. And number 5, last but certainly not least, SEO, the investment strategy of all of the things I'm talking through today. Okay, let me show you again a graph of the traffic that comes to our website so you can see how much of this comes from SEO alone. I've got a full training on how to actually find the words that you want to rank for in your content, and I will link that below. But let's bring this back to your pre-launch. And what I want you to do is really optimize those 6 to 8 weeks of hero content that you're churning out for SEO. So this means you're gonna have that blog piece for each of them, and then you're gonna take that blog and make sure that it is all ready to go when it comes to search engine optimization. Here's how that works. After I do the legwork and decide what I want to rank for, I'm gonna go into the blog and make sure that I have talked up that freebie multiple times in there. I'm also gonna make sure I have some sort of an exit intent pop-up on my website that either mentions that freebie or an overall freebie that I have for my business. Then I'm gonna ensure with the Yoast plugin that is, to me, worth every penny of the upgraded version of it, that I pass the green light. Here's what that looks like. I also love using the tool SEMrush for keywords because I'm able to take that keyword, go pop it into the keyword tracker inside SEMrush, and I'll get an email every week or every month that then tells me where I am and what page and what ranking I am in the slot for with the keyword I was going for. You can look this up on your own manually absolutely all day long, but it's worth it for me to pay a little bit every single month and get a list of the keywords that I'm trying to rank for and how I'm doing with them, just so I can start to see, oh, I was spot on with that one and where I missed the mark. Now, you may be feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now, so if so, I would love to take the pre-launch planning process off of your plate. I would love for you to check out my Prime to Launch playbook. I'll link it below. Here, you're gonna see how to come up with content ideas to talk about before your launch, how to take each week of hero content and break it out to push out on various channels, how to set goals for your launch and metrics, and so much more. You can check that all out in the link below. Now you know all about how to build your email list prior to your launch during that pre-launch phase. But what about nurturing your email list during pre-launch, and heck, even when you're not even in launch at all? Be sure to check out the next video I have teed up for you. I'm taking you through my email marketing predictions for 2021. If you liked this video, let me know by clicking the like button, hitting the subscribe button and the bell next to it, and also comment below any questions that you may have. I always love to answer those for you. Here's to working from a place of more rest, less hustle, and I'll see you in the next video.